Good morning and welcome to the National Newspaper Publishers Association's Let It Be Known. A former police officer in Minneapolis was found guilty of aiding and abetting the second-degree manslaughter of George Floyd. A judge has ruled putting an end to the cases of the officers involved in the May 2020 murder of George Floyd. We'll have some details on that. Also, a brand new detailed report issued by the U.S. Surgeon General explains the drastic and costly effects of loneliness and why more than half of Americans are lonely. We're going to talk about that this morning. And the woman who drove her car into Black Lives Matter demonstrations in New York that injured 6 protesters received an unbelievable light sentence yesterday. I'm going to tell you what that sentence was. Unreal. Also, a social media video post has gone viral and underscores how small children are taught hate words and racism, and where it comes from, of course, the parents. The video is as disturbing as it is interesting in that it really tells one heck of a story. We'll talk about that this morning. But first, breaking news overnight. Francisco Oropeza, the man suspected of gunning down 5 people, including a 9-year-old and his mother, last week in a neighbor's home in Texas, was captured Tuesday evening, hiding in a closet under a pile of laundry just a few miles from the massacre site after a tip helped lead police to him after a massive 4-day manhunt. Law enforcement officials found the 38-year-old Mexican national stowed under the pile of laundry in the closet of a home, according to San Jacinto County Sheriff Greg Caspers. Law enforcement had tracked Oropeza's wife to that home, which is associated with one of the suspect's family members, a law enforcement source said. He will be held on 5 counts of murder with a bond set at $5 million, the sheriff said. This guy, if you recall, we brought you this story last week. He was shooting guns off in his backyard or front yard, really. And neighbors, it was late at night. His neighbor asked him, could you please at least go to the other side of the yard and shoot? The kids really are trying to sleep. He got upset. He went into that person's house and started executing everyone, including the 9-year-old child, who was first reported as an 8-year-old, but it's confirmed that it was a 9-year-old. Doesn't make a difference, right? So he fled. Police had said that he fled on foot or on a bicycle. They feared that he had escaped to Mexico and finally tracked him down based on a tip after posting $80,000 reward for his for information leading to him. As David Youngblood points out, he will never see freedom again. Texas will put him to death. And that's probably true. Texas does have the death penalty, and they are very swift with their judgment there in Texas. So won't be long before this guy. I don't know how they execute him anymore, David, in Texas, with the different ways that they keep coming up with. But whether it's the electric chair, I know there's been talk of bringing back the firing squad and things of that nature. So we will see what happens there. Oropeza, we'd love to hear. David says the gas chamber. Would love to hear what this guy is, because there's probably no reason that could satisfy anybody, that would satisfy anyone. But what set him off? What set this guy off? And apparently, the charges, previous charges against him was that he had abused his wife as well, physically assaulted her. He was arrested for that about a year ago. So by all accounts, this is a very, very violent guy that probably doesn't take much to set him off. David says he practiced law in Texas once. Yeah, I knew David, you was a lawyer, but I thought it was Ohio. So I got that wrong on you, David. But he says he is toast. Power 96 says that Oropeza will get the needle in Texas, lethal injection. That leads to discussions on, of course, it kind of renders mute discussions like what is the most humane form of execution. The needle, as Power 96 says, the gas chamber cannot be humane. A firing squad, electric chair. But when you see something like this, an outright monstrous of an individual, I guess that's where folks start saying they just don't care, just put them to death. And here we are. Oropeza probably does face the death penalty in Texas. It is good that someone like this has been brought to justice. That's for sure. Michelle Madison is absolutely correct. She says his victim's family should be allowed to. She says his victim family should be allowed to kill him, though. Yeah, in the heat of the moment, we may, Michelle, all feel that way, but uh, do we want that on us? Let the law carry it out, right? Let them who put the laws in place carry it out, and something like that. As long as he will never see the light of day again, if he's executed, he's executed. But I don't know that I want to kill anybody. That's just me. What's going on in America? We talked a lot about the gun violence. Again, this case is certainly among them. But here's something else that's going on in America: loneliness. The U.S. Surgeon General on Tuesday declared widespread loneliness in the United States, the latest public health pandemic, comparing its effects on people's health to those of smoking a pack of cigarettes every single day. In an 81-page research, I went through this yesterday because it just intrigued me that Dr. Vivek Murthy, the Surgeon General, said that more than half of Americans are lonely. It's like, how does that happen? Why is everyone so lonely? You look at social media, and which again tells you don't believe social media. Folks are putting forth what they consider or what you think is their best lives. They lonely, according to the U.S. Surgeon General, and he did some really, really in-depth reporting here. He says healthcare experts have concrete proof that loneliness impacts a significant part of the population, causing sensations akin to hunger and thirst. He says the feeling the body sends us when something we need for survival is missing. The Surgeon General stated that he wants to raise awareness of issues that impact most people and encourage them to speak out instead of enduring silence, suffering in silence. The Surgeon General's declaration seeks to increase conversations surrounding loneliness, though he doesn't foresee any legislation or formal federal action coming down the pike. He is concerned that too many are lonely, and perhaps just going back to Oropesa and all the other gun violence, maybe that's lending to it. Maybe it should be a part of that study to examine, is that leading to some of this crazy gun violence. We see oftentimes these folks are considered, they label them loners, and the neighbors say, I would never have thought. Well, maybe there's a correlation there. But the declaration by the Surgeon General also noted that in recent decades, Americans reported feeling lonelier because of their declining involvement in religion, civic groups, and with their families. Single person homes have doubled in the US over the past 60 years, but the Surgeon General also noted that it worsened when COVID-19 struck, which forced most Americans to abandon schools, workplaces, and social visits. According to the advisory, individual health and the lack of social connection pose a significant risk to one's longevity. Among the symptoms, excessive cigarette smoking and death. The advisory noted that a poor or insufficient social connection has ties to a high disease prevalence. A 29% increase in the risk of heart disease and a 32% increase in having a stroke. He says the potential for anxiety, depression, and dementia is increased exponentially when an individual is lonely. The Surgeon General went on to say that the lack of social connection may increase susceptibility to viruses and respiratory illnesses, and also older adults, where that tends to be a real issue as folks age and they start losing loved ones and friends with age. It's estimated that social isolation leads to more than $6.7 billion in additional Medicaid spending because of extra hospital and nursing facility costs associated with it. Folks, we gotta make sure that our loved ones aren't lonely. Michelle Madison says she's just emotional. She has an 8-year-old grandson, and she can't imagine. I guess she's referring to that the shooting. I thought she was referring to the loneliness factor here, but the Surgeon General warned that isolation and loneliness lowers academic achievement and it worsens performance at work. So really, there's a wide range of effect here when it comes to loneliness, and also employers lose about $154 billion each year because of stress-related absences by employees. And so the Surgeon General concludes the report by saying, given the profound consequences of loneliness and isolation, we have an opportunity and an obligation to make sure the same investments in addressing social connection that we have made in addressing tobacco use, obesity, and the addiction crisis. Um, Wow. And so again, reach out. And if there are hotlines also, loneliness is equated, of course, to mental health. And there are many mental health hotlines. Check out the National Alliance for Mental Illness, NAMI. Check out their websites. And also, there are other federal hotlines as well that you can look into for a loved one or yourself. And don't deny if you are feeling certain ways, don't deny it to yourself. Take action. There are groups out there. Again, the Surgeon General said if you don't have a family, try some civic groups. If you don't have civic groups, try religion. Um, I know that's a slippery slope for many. Jay Menz is watching on Facebook. He says it's even worse when you are amongst other people, even in the home, and still feel lonely. Everyone in their own world via cell phones, television, etc. And that, Jay, I think is an amazing point because um, even if you have a group with you, you ever go to a restaurant and you see a family or some friends sitting at the table and they all on their cell phones and even sometimes texting each other at the table. That is a problem. That is a problem. This is why I fell in love with the show. I may have mentioned this in a previous episode of this show, the show Blue Bloods. Every single episode, there's a dinner table, family only, and there are no they say no shop talk, and so they don't allow for cell phones or anything. They just sit and they have family dinner and have family discussion. More of that is needed. We romanticize about the past, but it seems that some years ago that was it was just understood that that would happen, that you would have a family dinner, not just on Sundays either. It would be in a lot of homes, it was daily. You had a family dinner. Power 96. Power 96 says he feels lonely after he pays his bills. I guess your pocket feels lonely, Power 96, after you pay your bills. But loneliness is really a serious thing, and take to heart what the Surgeon General is has put out. And you can go to the Surgeon General's website. Just Google U.S. Surgeon General, and it'll come up. And check out if you're interested in that 81-page report. It has some deep reporting there about loneliness, and also resources for loneliness and other mental health situation. So check it out today if you can. Turn it to a guy named Tao Thao. You may have heard that name a few times in the past couple of years. He's the former police officer in Minneapolis who was found guilty this week of aiding and abetting the second degree manslaughter of George Floyd in May of 2020. Judge Peter Cahill's 177-page ruling states that Thao ignored his orders and encouraged his colleagues to use the dangerous prone restraint of putting a knee in the neck of George Floyd. The judge said, like the bystanders, this officer could see Floyd's life slowly ebbing away as the restraint continued. Yet, he consciously decided to participate in Floyd's death actively. He held back the concerned bystanders and even prevented an off duty Minneapolis firefighter from rendering the medical aid Floyd so desperately needed. So finally, uh, this comes to a close. The cases of the four officers involved in the George Floyd murder. Minnesota Attorney General Keith Ellison, who led the prosecution of Floyd's murder, said the conviction of Thao is historic and the right outcome. It brings one measure of accountability in the tragic death of George Floyd. Accountability is not justice, but it is a step on the road to justice. This officer witnessed the incident and he yelled at onlookers to keep their distance from the police. Prosecutors argued he blocked the crowd from aiding George Floyd, who was pleading for air and for his mother. He also mocked George Floyd. He falsely assumed that Floyd was on drugs. Um, so all of the officers uh, have been in prison. Derek Chauvin, of course, got 22 years in a state trial after a state trial, and 22 years he pleaded guilty. And on the federal side, sentences are running concurrently for Derek Chauvin, although Floyd family members and others wanted it to run consecutively. They're running concurrently, and Chauvin hopes to get out of prison after 18 years. Serving in 18 years, I believe, is what he has to serve. Power 96 says, Thou is the problem with policing in the USA. He let another police officer kill someone and didn't do anything except block people from helping the victim. And that's pretty much what the judge said. Power 96. Uh, it's that blue wall that they keep talking about. And until other officers, and we've seen some cases where officers have stepped up, but until it becomes the norm of officers stepping up, it probably will continue, according to many who have seen this go on now for forever. I was going to say for centuries, but really forever. Ever since they instituted the police force, we know they instituted the police force. It began actually in Boston. To They were slave catchers. That's why they instituted the first American police force. And oftentimes, these officers tend to act like that's what they're still doing. In New York, a mother of three who plowed her BMW into a group of Black Lives Matter protesters in 2020 following the murder of George Floyd walked free from court on this week, I should say, having been sentenced to just 5 hours of community service as part of a plea arrangement with the Manhattan District Attorney's Office. Her name is Kathleen Casillo. She's 53 years old. She was facing the possibility of up to 7 years in prison if she was convicted in the incident that left six people injured. Under the deal, she pleads guilty to reckless endangerment, a misdemeanor, and she will have the charge reduced to a disorderly conduct violation if she fulfills her sentence of 5 hours of community service and stays out of trouble for 6 months. She really, there was a scene in the Manhattan courthouse yesterday. Family members were, as she headed to the elevator with the court officers, they were yelling at her, letting her know that she was the aggressor. Bodies went flying in the air in that incident when she hit her gas pedal and drove into the protesters. She had claimed that the protesters were acting aggressively. Video of video footage of the protest and of the incident did not support her claims. Yet the Manhattan District Attorney's office said uh, she had no previous record. They took her at her word that it was an accident, and they believed that this was the best possible outcome. They had offered her two other plea deals that she rejected. Um, had a good lawyer, folks. Power 96 says a slap on the wrist for another Karen. She said that she thought she and her daughter were in danger, and her thing was to protect her daughter. But she really, really, you talk about getting off lightly. I think that is an understatement. Dr. Nicole says that's certainly not justice. Shaking my head. Hopefully, they'll get her in civil court. That's perhaps where it's headed, civil court. The family of one of the victims was furious with the light sentence. They said to her, "You messed up people's lives." This was yelled out, caught on tape as she came out of she went into the courthouse. She says, "You're a criminal." One woman screamed at her inside the corridors of Manhattan's Supreme Court following the plea hearing. Uh, you're a criminal and you have not taken accountability. The woman, apparently her husband was injured in the attack. She said, "My husband's back was turned. He didn't even see it coming. He was not the aggressor." And Castillo has claimed that, again, that she inadvertently hit the gas pedal in panic because she said protesters were being aggressive. She says they scared her. And the woman who was yelling at her said they didn't do anything. I was that aggressive that her husband's back was turned. They went flying in the air. She yelled out to Castillo. The defense lawyers said justice. They claimed justice had been served. They said we are very gratified. In the statement, her attorney said we are very gratified after an exhaustive and thorough review. The Manhattan DA's office decided not to charge her. She did not receive, I should say, a criminal conviction. They said she is retired. She's a retired grandmother who looks forward to putting this horrible ordeal behind her and spending time with her family. And I think it's Dr. Nicole is probably right. This is not the end of that story. In fact, Castillo lives in Howard Beach, Queens, and they will. I'm pretty sure she can expect some knocks at the door for service of civil cases. Really, really, really sad story there, angering even more people, particularly given the fact that if you recall, in St. Louis a couple of years ago, remember the couple that came out and menaced and pointed their guns at demonstrators? And I think now that they were running for office, the last we heard, and they were praised by a certain faction of government as heroes. Um, really, really, really sad. And I'll tell you what else is sad. Uh, eh, this video that's circulating social media, Twitter, and other places. This is 2023's one of the captions on one of the videos says, "This is 2023, and their kids are trained at a young age on how to I'm sorry, to dehumanize Black people." Let's take a look at this video. Really, really disturbing for a lot of reasons.
Oh, hey,
Can, can Monkey come play?
who?
Monkey,
Who is Monkey?
your son.
That's not his name. Why would you call him Monkey?
We just call him that.
I don't think that's a nice name, though. Did he say it was okay to call him Monkey?
I don't know. I just got it from my friends.
Would you want somebody to call you an animal name?
don't care.
Okay. Well, Jaden is his name, and he's not coming out to play with you guys today. And Cadence is. She's asleep. All right.
Okay.
Talk to you later.
Wow. Can Monkey come out and play? Um, Racism occurs across a spectrum. It lives within individuals and between them, within institutions and across society. And at every level, children are affected by discriminatory beliefs and practices, according to various experts. Kids pick up on what their parents and teachers say and don't say, who and what they see on television, and what their dolls look like, and how other people are treated in their schools and neighborhoods. This mother probably handled this the, in the best way possible. Um, she didn't lose her cool. This kid, but when you think about the child that was asking, um, can he come out and play? She asked him, "Would you like to be called an animal's name?" And just to show you the innocence of little children, he said, "I don't care." It's corruption from the parents and those that they are around every day that teaches these children to hate, because this kid, oh, he just sees this other kid as a playmate, but then now because of his parents, he probably sees him as some sort of, he doesn't care, a monkey. He's black, so he's a monkey. This is taught. This is so abhorrent. But again, the mother handled it beautifully. She reasoned with this child, gave him something to think about, and perhaps he won't call that young boy a monkey anymore, or maybe he'll hesitate, or maybe he'll have the conversation with his parents, because parents obviously failed to have the right conversation with him. I'm sure they've had conversations, they just didn't have the right one. And so maybe he gets the chance to teach the parents. Power 96 says, I'm from the deep south. I am not surprised. That is why I stayed in trouble in my youth. I would have beat the brakes off of him. Dr. Nicole says that our stories this morning are all connected. With all this craziness and injustice going on in this world, is there any wonder why people lonely are staying to themselves? It's an amazing point right there. And Michelle Madison says, Mom is cool as a cucumber. He was taught that. He absolutely, Michelle, had to have been taught that. And you wonder how many other friends he it looks to be that it's hard to tell from that, strictly from that angle, from the doorbell cam, but perhaps he lives in a predominantly or at least an area that's more white than black. The other kids perhaps are white. Um, and this, imagine what this young boy has to endure, not only on the playground, but in school. If that's the case, if that's a predominantly white area where the kids are calling him monkey, imagine in school. And I think we talked a little bit before about uh, educators and their responsibility, and perhaps the educators find it funny because perhaps the educators need some DE&I training, I guess. Um, Dr. Nicole, right? I agree with Dr. Nicole. He's not yet connected his words to racism, but one day he will. And I believe that as well. And this is where you have to draw the line. Joni King says, since she was reasonable to him, he should apologize. And that's a good point too. It was not in this kid's thought process to say, "Oh, I'm sorry." The boy's mother is telling this kid, there's something wrong with that. And there's no sense that I should apologize. That's his mom. Let me apologize. Jay Min says that, quote, I don't care could be a sign of defiance and not innocence. That's a good point, too. The one thing I'm not is a therapist. Sometimes I need one, but, but I'm not a therapist. Good point, Jay. It could be defiance. But whatever it is, I agree. I have to go back to those two comments, Dr. Nicole and Joni King, where Dr. Nicole again says he's not yet connected his words to racism, but one day he will. And this is where you'll get the supremacist stuff, behavior and attitude. It'll grow into that unless he's taught differently, and apparently to this point he has not been taught differently. And Joni King, again, she was reasonable to him. He should have apologized. Folks, let's do better. Teaching children hate, and this is, again, they take away all of the books, right, about history, and which you have right wing saying, oh, that's made up, or that's black people stuff, or no, it's everybody's stuff. It's American history. You can't have American history without black history. The two are intertwined. Racism occurs across a spectrum. Just remember that. And again, the stories are connected. It is craziness, injustice going on in this crazy world. Folks, just try not to take matters into your own hand is what I will say. Go inside. People are driving, looking for trouble, walking down the street looking for trouble. This is where we're at. Hate to have such a somber show, but it's news, it's headlines, it's what we have to give you in the morning. We'll try to see if there's some good news that we can bring you tomorrow. But we appreciate all y'all for watching, and appreciate all the comments. Continue to do so. It really enlightens us too. Remember, when you watch news, the one thing that has disturbed me as a journalist, I've been a journalist for about 30 years, and the one thing that has disturbed me today is when you turn on CNN or NBC or Fox. Fox is not news, we know, and read many publications, you're getting opinion. That's disturbing. We want facts. You deserve facts. And you deserve, as the reader, as the viewer, you deserve to decide on your own on a matter, not to have a news anchor tell you what he or she thinks. That's all we see today for the most part. And with the advent of social media, it's permeated the news cycle, what people think. You get a story, you get 2 seconds of a story, and the rest just opinion from mainstream media. They know it. This is not a diss. It's just the facts. And so we try to give you guys news you can use. And Power 96 says, get rid of the Kardashians. I can't disagree there. And then, well, so do we do the same thing here? We have guests on, yeah, they give their opinion. We solicit their opinions, but we try to give it in a way in which give some thought-provoking ideas anyway. Maybe we're falling short. I don't know. Y'all let us know. And hold us accountable. Power 96, the most important thing he said all day before we close is the Knicks win. The Knicks win. Last night, the Knicks did defeat the Miami Heat at the Garden. Even in that best of 7 series, 1 game apiece as they head south to Miami for games 3 and 4 this coming weekend. They got a few days to rest up, get their bodies in order, and come out and defeat the Heat. Beat the Heat. That's what they got to do. Beat the Heat, because Pat Riley is still associated with the Heat. We got to beat Pat Riley. Got to beat him. So let's go Knicks. And again, thank you. And subscribe, folks, to our YouTube channel. Let It Be Known YouTube channel. That is, I'm sure you will be seeing some things. I keep promising you that Greer has some things in mind for the YouTube channel that is not going to be on Facebook. It's not going to be anywhere else except the YouTube channel. So subscribe so you can see what we're talking about. Thanks for watching, and we will see you tomorrow.